My wife secretly sold our family home for $350, $0 to fund her affair with our mutual friend, then lawyered up to claim I was mentally incompetent when I found out. And now she's trying to take everything, including the $200, $0 inheritance I never knew she knew about. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am. Just when I thought I had my life figured out, everything flipped upside down in a way I couldn't have seen coming. It all started with a gut feeling, then turned into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. You see, I found out my wife, Lisa, was cheating on me with our mutual friend, Jason. And not just cheating, but secretly selling our family home to fund her affair. Yeah, she sold the house for $350, $0, and I only found out because I was snooping around when something felt off. It's hard to even put into words how betrayed I felt. Lisa had always been bitchy, manipulative, and good at hiding her true motives. She liked to lie, twist stories, and make herself look innocent no matter what. But this was next level. She'd been acting weird for months, secretive late nights, avoiding me, deleting texts, and acting like I was paranoid whenever I brought it up. I thought maybe she was just stressed or tired, or maybe she was hiding something about her job. But that was just the surface. One day I decided to check our bank account and phone logs more carefully. I'd been suspicious for a while, but I didn't want to believe it. Then I saw the transfer, a huge sum of money gone from our account, transferred to an unknown account. I traced it and found out she sold the house. I couldn't believe it. We had built a life there, a family life. She told me she wanted to downsize, that it was for our future, but I knew better. I knew she'd been planning something. That's when I found out about Jason. It was from a text message she left open on her phone. She was bragging about how Jason finally got her out of her head, and how she was going to leave everything behind, including me. My stomach dropped. I felt numb. I couldn't believe the woman I married was capable of this level of deception. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind raced. How long had this been going on? How much had she lied? And what about the money? I started digging into her phone, her emails, bank statements, everything I could find. That's when I uncovered the biggest shock of all. Not only had she sold the house, but she'd also been secretly planning to claim my inheritance, a sum of around $200, $0 I never even told her I had. I inherited it from my grandfather, who passed away last year. It was supposed to be my safety net, my retirement fund, but she somehow knew about it and was trying to get her hands on it. I felt sick. How could she be so calculating, so ruthless? It was like she was trying to take everything I had left, everything I'd worked for, all for her affair with Jason. I confronted her that night. I was furious, hurt, and betrayed. I threw everything on the table, told her I knew about the house, the affair, the money, everything. Her reaction: she played the innocent victim card, said I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that Jason was just a friend, and that I was overreacting. She called me crazy and jealous, even tried to turn it around on me, saying I'd been distant and suspicious for months. She lied through her teeth, telling me she was just stressed, that she needed space, that I was overreacting because I don't trust her. The audacity. Honestly, I felt like I was losing my mind. I was angry, yes, but also devastated. How could she do this to me, to us? All those years, the plans we made, the family we tried to build. It was like she'd been planning her escape for months, maybe longer. I couldn't sleep that night, replaying every word, every lie she told. I felt so betrayed, so broken. I didn't even know who she was anymore. But I knew one thing for sure: this wasn't just about infidelity. It was about her greed, her manipulations, her total disregard for my feelings and everything we'd built. I knew I had to do something, but I also knew I was at a crossroads. I'd never been one for revenge, but this was different. I was going to let her take everything without a fight. After that night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling back to everything I'd uncovered. The house was gone, the inheritance was on the line, and Lisa was still insisting she was innocent. But I knew better. I started digging even deeper, pulling together every piece of evidence I could find, trying to understand just how far she'd gone. The next day, I hired a lawyer. I needed to know what my options were legally. especially since she'd already lawyered up and was claiming I was mentally incompetent to handle anything. I couldn't believe she'd gone that far, using her lawyer to try and shut me out to control the narrative. It was classic Lisa, playing the victim, twisting the story, trying to make herself look innocent while she schemed behind my back. But I wasn't going down without a fight. I had proof now, and I was determined to get to the truth. I met with the lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Karen. She looked over everything I had, bank statements, texts, emails, even recordings I'd managed to secretly make. She told me I had a solid case for contesting the sale of the house, especially since she'd lied about her reasons for selling and hadn't disclosed the inheritance. The fact that she was trying to claim my inheritance through legal means was another thing altogether. That money was mine, and no matter how much she lied, I had the proof to fight her in court. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act. She'd call me crying, saying I was ruining everything, that I was trying to destroy her, that she only did it for us, even though I knew she was lying. She'd twist her words, turn the blame on me, accuse me of being paranoid or jealous. She'd say I was trying to control her, but I saw through it. I saw her for what she was, a manipulative, selfish woman who'd do anything to get what she wanted, even if it meant destroying our family. I also started looking into the financial details more closely. I found out she'd been talking to Jason about the house sale, secretly planning it for months. She told him she'd need to get rid of everything, including me, to be with him. They'd been talking about the money, about how she'd finally be free once she had the house and the inheritance. That's when I realized how much she'd planned this. It wasn't just a fling, it was a full-blown betrayal, with her using her charm and manipulation to get her way. I couldn't help but feel a mix of anger and sadness. Anger because she'd lied, cheated, and schemed against me. Sadness because I'd lost the woman I loved, or at least thought I loved. I started questioning everything: our marriage, her love, my own judgment. How did I miss all these signs? How did I let her get away with this? The betrayal cut deep, and I was struggling to keep it together. The hardest part was realizing I'd trusted her blindly for so long. Now I wasn't sure I could ever trust her again, but I also knew I had to stay strong. I couldn't let her manipulate the situation anymore. I had to protect what was mine, my inheritance, my home, my dignity. I told Corinne I wanted to fight for everything she was trying to steal. If she wanted a war, I was ready to give it to her. I wasn't going to let her walk away with my money, my house, or my peace of mind. I had to think strategically, stay calm, and prepare for whatever legal battles lay ahead. That's when I started putting together a plan. I knew she'd try to spin the story, paint herself as the victim, and use her lawyer to drag things out. I had to be one step ahead. I started gathering witnesses, friends, family who knew the truth, anyone who could testify about her lies and manipulations. I also contacted a private investigator to look into her phone records, her conversations with Jason, and any other hidden dealings she might have. I wasn't going to let her get away with this without a fight. All I could think about was how much I'd been. I thought I knew my wife, my partner. Turns out, she was just a different person behind closed doors, greedy, manipulative, and willing to destroy everything for her own gain. I felt betrayed, furious, but also strangely relieved that I finally knew the truth. Now, I just had to see it through and protect what was left of my life. Over the next few weeks, everything moved fast. I stayed up nights poring over documents, emails, and texts. Lisa's lies kept unraveling, and I could see her desperation growing. She'd try to spin things in her favor, claiming she didn't know about the inheritance, that she thought I was hiding stuff. But I had proof, screenshots, bank records, even her own words admitting she knew about the money. That's when I realized she'd been scheming for months, maybe even longer, trying to set up her escape plan. I also found out she'd been talking to Jason almost daily. They'd exchanged texts, plans, flirtations. She even admitted, in a rare moment of honesty, that she'd been having sex with him since last year, right around the time she started pushing to sell the house. That was the final nail in the coffin. I'd always suspected something was going on, but hearing it confirmed made my stomach turn. The woman I'd loved and trusted was now just a stranger with a suitcase full of lies. I decided I had to confront her again, this time more prepared. I called her out in the living room, told her I had enough evidence to take her to court, and that I was serious about fighting for the inheritance in the house. She looked at me, her eyes cold and calculating, and tried to dismiss everything. "You're paranoid," she said. "You're just jealous because I want a better life." She played the victim again, crying about how badly I'd been treating her and how she deserved happiness, but I wasn't buying it anymore. She then threw out a new lie, claiming she'd only been talking to Jason as a friend, that they never had sex, and that I was crazy for accusing her. Yeah, right. I had the texts, the messages, and the receipts. She was caught and she knew it. Still, she kept trying to manipulate me, twisting words, trying to make me doubt what I'd seen. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I told her straight up I knew about her affair, the house sale, the money, and her scheming to take my inheritance. Her reaction, she snapped. Started yelling at me, calling me paranoid, controlling, and mentally unstable. She accused me of ruining her life and said I was jealous of Jason, which was laughable. The truth was, I was more hurt than angry. Now I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How could she lie so effortlessly? How could she betray me like this? For a moment, I wondered if I should just walk away, let her take everything, and start over. But then I remembered what she'd done, how she'd sold our home, betrayed our marriage, and tried to steal my inheritance. I couldn't let her get away with that. I started planning my next move. I contacted my lawyer again, told her I wanted to file for full custody of the house, contest the sale, and most importantly, block her from claiming my inheritance. We discussed the legal grounds. She'd lied about her intentions, and her attempt to claim the inheritance was based on fraudulent grounds. I also wanted to push for a forensic audit of our accounts to see exactly where the money had gone and to find any other hidden assets. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act, calling friends and family, trying to spin her version of the story. She told everyone I was unstable, that I'd lost my mind, and that she was the victim of a crazy husband. I could see through her lies. But it was frustrating how easily she manipulated others. I knew I had to stay calm and let the legal process speak for itself. The more she lied, the more evidence I gathered against her. I felt a strange mixture of relief and dread. Relief because I finally had proof, a clear path to fight back. Dread because I knew this wasn't going to be over quickly. Lisa was relentless, and she'd do everything to keep what she wanted. But I had nothing left to lose. I'd be damned if she took everything I'd worked my whole life to build. Her greed and lies had crossed a line, and I was ready to stand my ground. Each day brought new surprises, more lies, more manipulations, and more evidence stacking up against her. I realized that this was no longer just about a cheating wife. It was about a woman who'd become completely unrecognizable, driven by greed and selfishness. I was starting to see her true face, and honestly, it made me sick. But I also knew I had to keep fighting for myself, for what's right, and for whatever was left of the life I thought I knew. The legal battles started to take shape. I wasn't naive enough to think everything would be resolved overnight, but I was determined to fight for what was mine. My lawyer, Karen, worked tirelessly, drafting motions, filing paperwork, and preparing me for the court hearings. The more I delved into her schemes, the clearer it became how deep her greed ran. She lied about the sale of the house, claiming she'd needed to downsize because the kids were grown, but I knew better. She'd been planning this for months, and Jason was right there helping her. One of the most shocking discoveries during this period was the extent of her duplicity. I found out she'd been secretly transferring money from the sale of the house into her own accounts, trying to hide the funds. She'd also been talking to lawyers behind my back, trying to set up legal defenses before I even knew what was happening. That's when it hit me. She'd been planning to take everything from the start, including the inheritance I never even told her about. The inheritance was supposed to be my safety net, a family legacy, and now she was trying to snatch it away in broad daylight. I remember sitting in my living room, staring at the pile of evidence I'd collected, feeling a mix of anger, frustration, and exhaustion. I'd always been an honest guy, worked hard, paid my taxes, and tried to be fair. And yet now I was fighting to keep what was rightfully mine against a woman I thought I knew. The betrayal was staggering. I couldn't understand how she could be so cold, so calculated. She'd lied to my face, manipulated everyone around her, and was now trying to drain my bank account and take my inheritance. It was like she was a different person entirely. One night, I confronted her directly again. I told her I knew about her affair with Jason, the sale of the house, and her attempt to steal my inheritance. I wanted her to hear it straight from me. Her reaction was a mix of rage and defiance. She screamed that I was crazy, that I was trying to ruin her, and that she deserved to be happy. She even accused me of abusing her emotionally, which made me laugh bitterly. I'd never hit her, never raised my voice, but she was now painting herself as the victim. That's classic Lisa, twisting everything to fit her narrative, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. I told her she was done lying, that I had all the evidence, and that I was going to fight her for every cent she tried to steal. I explained that I'd filed a motion to freeze her assets and that I was going to contest the sale of the house in court. I made it clear I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Her face twisted with anger, and she spat at me that I'd ruined everything, that she'd destroy me, and that she'd take me down if she had to. Yeah, I believed her. Meanwhile, I kept gathering more witnesses, people who knew her true nature, friends who'd seen her manipulations, family who suspected her greed. I also hired a private investigator to dig into her financials, to find any hidden accounts or assets she'd been hiding. The more I uncovered, the more I realized she'd been planning this for a long time. She'd even told Jason she wanted to start fresh somewhere else, and that she'd be better off without me. That was the moment I truly understood how deep her betrayal went. She'd been planning her escape, and I was just now catching on. I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of loss, not just of the marriage, but of the woman I thought I knew. The woman who'd once loved me, or so I thought. Now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, greedy person willing to destroy everything to get her way. I wondered how I'd missed all the signs, how I'd been so blind to her true nature. But I also knew I had to stay strong. I couldn't let her win, not without a fight. Every day I woke up with a new resolve. I was fighting for my future, for my inheritance, and for the dignity I had left. The court hearings loomed ahead, and I was preparing myself for what would be another emotional. I knew Lisa wouldn't go down without a fight. She'd do whatever it took to keep the money, the house, and her new life with Jason. But I was ready. I'd spent too much time and energy fighting to be silenced now. In the end, I realized this wasn't just about money or betrayal. It was about trust, something I'd given her blindly for years. And now I was trying to reclaim what was mine piece by piece. I don't know how this will all turn out, but I do know one thing. I refuse to be the victim anymore. I'll stand my ground, fight for what's right, and learn from this nightmare. Because if I've learned anything, it's that sometimes the biggest betrayals come from the people you trust the most. The court dates came faster than I expected. The first hearing was a whirlwind. Lisa showed up, dressed to impress, her face a mask of innocence but her eyes burning with manipulation. Jason was nowhere to be seen, but I knew he was behind the scenes, pulling strings or trying to sway things in her favor. My lawyer laid out all the evidence, from the bank transactions to the text messages, and the fact that she'd lied about the sale, the affair, and the inheritance. I could see Lisa's composure cracking just a little when she realized I had so much on her. Her lawyer tried to argue that I was mentally incompetent, claiming I was unstable because I'd confronted her and started digging into her finances. They even submitted a psychiatric report, which I later learned was fabricated, another sign of how desperate she was to control the narrative. But I had my own witnesses, friends who knew her true character, and my private investigator had uncovered even more dirt. Turns out, Lisa had been talking to a lawyer about protecting her assets, which was a clear sign she was planning to hide or transfer more money. The judge wasn't convinced by her lawyer's attempts to paint me as unstable. Instead, he ordered a forensic audit of all our accounts, froze her assets, and set a date for the next hearing. I left the courtroom feeling a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief because I knew I had a fighting chance, and dread because I knew Lisa wouldn't go down quietly. She'd fight dirty, I was sure of that. In the days that followed, Lisa ramped up her tactics. She started spreading stories to friends and family, claiming I was crazy, that I'd lost my mind, and that she was just trying to protect her children. She even went as far as to try to turn our kids against me, telling them I was unstable and dangerous. That hurt more than anything. My own family started questioning me, and I felt like I was losing everything: my marriage, my reputation, and my peace of mind. Meanwhile, I kept pushing forward. I worked closely with Corinne, the lawyer, to prepare for the next phase. We filed motions to contest the sale of the house, claiming she'd lied and manipulated the entire process. We also filed to have her declared unfit to manage her own assets, given her suspicious transfers and her attempts to hide money. I was finally starting to see some cracks in her armor. Her confidence was slipping, and I could tell she was panicking. One night, I received an anonymous tip that Lisa was planning to leave the country with Jason and the money. She'd been talking about moving to another state, maybe even abroad, to start fresh. That was the moment I realized I had to act fast. I contacted my lawyer immediately, and we filed an emergency motion to prevent her from leaving the country until all this was sorted out. We also contacted the authorities, who confirmed that her passport was being flagged for possible restrictions. It was a tense few days, waiting for the judge's decision. I felt like I was holding my breath, knowing she was probably scrambling behind the scenes to find a way out. I couldn't believe how far she was willing to go, how much she'd sacrifice just to keep the money and escape accountability. It made me sick to think she'd betray her own family for Jason and greed. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. For the first time in months, I saw a way forward, a way to fight back and take control of what's left. When the judge finally ruled, it was a small victory. He granted the motion to freeze her assets further and barred her from leaving the state. It wasn't a full victory, but it was enough to slow her down. I knew she'd come back swinging, but I was ready. I'd learned how ruthless she could be, and I wasn't going to let her destroy me. I also started reaching out to my family and friends, explaining everything without sugarcoating it. I needed their support, and I realized I wasn't alone in this fight. Throughout all of this, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. I'd loved Lisa, trusted her, and thought we had a future. Instead, I'd been by her greed and lies. It was hard to accept, but I was slowly coming to terms with the fact that I had to rebuild my life from the ground up. I didn't know how long this legal battle would last, or if I'd ever fully recover from the shock. But I knew one thing: I was done being a victim. From now on, I was fighting for what was rightfully mine, and I wasn't going to let her take it all away without a fight. The final court date was a whirlwind. I remember walking into that courtroom feeling more exhausted than ever, but also with a strange sense of resolve. The judge reviewed all the evidence: my documentation, her lies, the illegal transfers, the attempts to hide the inheritance, and it was clear she was cornered. Her lawyer tried to argue that she was the victim, that she was simply trying to protect her future, but the judge wasn't buying it. The forensic audit confirmed her attempts to transfer funds, and the court declared her unfit to manage her assets, freezing her accounts completely. The house sale was officially contested, and the court ordered it to be reversed. I couldn't believe it. I'd fought tooth and nail, and now the house was back in limbo. Meanwhile, my inheritance was protected, and I was awarded full control of it. The judge also ordered Lisa to pay back the money she'd transferred illegally, plus damages for emotional distress. That was the moment I felt like I'd finally taken back some control of my life. Lisa's face during the hearing was a mask of rage and defeat. She realized she'd lost everything she'd schemed for. Her lies had crumbled, and her manipulations had failed. Jason was never called to testify. I think he knew he was next if he tried to interfere. As I sat there, watching her be taken down, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. All the anger, betrayal, and heartbreak flooded over me, but I also felt a weight lift. I'd fought for what was right, and I'd won. Barely, but I'd won. In the aftermath, I started the slow process of rebuilding. I sold the house once it was returned, knowing I didn't want to live in a place tainted by her lies. I moved into a small apartment and focused on healing, physically, emotionally, financially. It wasn't easy. There were nights I'd lie awake thinking about everything I'd lost, how I'd trusted her, and how I'd never see her the same way again. But I also knew I had learned something invaluable. Trust is fragile, and betrayal can come from the most unexpected places. I cut ties with Lisa completely. She tried to reach out a few times, but I blocked her. I didn't want her poison in my life anymore. My family and friends stood by me, and their support reminded me that I wasn't alone. I also sought therapy to work through the emotional scars, because this kind of betrayal leaves a mark that doesn't fade easily. But slowly, I found a way to forgive myself for trusting her blindly, and I learned to be more cautious about who I let into my life. Looking back, I realize how much this whole ordeal has changed me. I'm more guarded now, but also more aware. I refuse to be naive again. I've learned that some people will do anything for money, even if it means destroying everything they once claimed to love. And I've learned that standing up for yourself, even when it's hard, is the only way to truly regain control. So, here's what I want anyone reading this to take away. Be vigilant. Don't ignore the red flags, no matter how small. Trust is earned, not given blindly. And if you ever find yourself betrayed like I was, know that it's okay to feel broken, but don't stay down. Fight for what's yours, protect your peace, and never let anyone steal your dignity. Because in the end, the only person who truly has your back is yourself.